Hi, this is Tori Henderson, and you are here at a webinar today about the art of raising teens. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I'm gonna get... This is Tori Henderson, and you are here at a webinar today about the art of raising teens. Okay, sounds like everyone's live, and I'm gonna get started. So one second here, let me share my screen. So again, I'm Tori Henderson. I'm owner of lifecoachingforparents.com. I'm also co-owner of timeforthetalk.com, which is an online sex education class for parents to take with their 9 to 12-year-old son or daughter. I am screen sharing with everyone. Just one second here. Will that work? So if you could, just to get the most out of this webinar, to close the other browser windows that you have open, and it helps the streaming and everything to run smoothly. If at any time you can't hear me or having trouble technically, you can email me. It's lifecoachtori@gmail.com. My name is spelled Torie. And so you can send me an email and we'll try and fix that if you're having any trouble getting into the webinar. So we are here today to talk about the art of raising teens, how to live with teenagers without losing your mind. So how to get the most out of this webinar: close other windows, eliminate distractions. You know, when we're as busy moms, we always are trying to do more than one thing at a time. So if possible, I notice it really helps if you can take some time to just devote yourself and your attention to this webinar. Maybe get a piece of paper and pen out, because I'm going to be going through a lot of rich content really quickly. So maybe you might want to take notes. And a little bit about me. I'm a master certified life coach. I am currently the mother of 2 adolescents, swimming in the pool along with you. I have spent my adult life as a parent educator and teacher. Like I said, teaching sex ed to 9 to 12-year-olds. I have a summer camp for 12 to 14-year-old girls. I'm launching Girl Leaders, and I also teach other people how to use my curriculum for teen and preteen girls. And I consider myself a recovering worrier and perfectionist. So I feel like I get teenagers. I hang out with them a lot. I relate to them in a lot of ways. And I have a lot of fun in my kind of career that I've created here for myself. And life coaching, mostly for parents, although sometimes with teenagers as well. So I've had a lot of experience hanging with adolescents and with their parents, and I absolutely love both. You are in the right place if you're raising a 12 to 20-year-old son or daughter. You know, when you think about puberty starting earlier and kids living at home longer, we are going to live with a child in puberty more than we will live in a child who's not in puberty. So I think it is worthwhile to learn all about what's going on in the minds of adolescents. You're in the right place if you work with teenagers or parents. You know, even if you don't have them, if you work with them, I think this will be really helpful for you. And you don't have it all figured out. This is not the place for parents who are like, oh, I got this. We are just cruising along through the teen years. This is just easy as pie. This is not the webinar for you. If you've got it all figured out, then enjoy it and tell us all how you did it. The third thing is you're in the right place if you want to be a good parent and maintain your sanity through the teen years. You know, this is really a webinar for parents who want to do right by their kids. They want to do a good job of parenting them. They want to do the right things, and sometimes figuring out what those right things are really stressful. So this is really designed for you. If you are willing to learn and grow and not just follow a set of rules that applies to everyone. I totally understand how lovely it would be if there was a set of rules we could just follow and say, like, a good mom would not let their child play on electronics for more than 2 hours a day. Like, if there was a set of rules to follow that everybody followed, that would make life so much easier. But teenagers are all different, and parents are all different, and every family is different. And so this is really about taking the time to kind of learn, reflect, and grow rather than having one set rule that applies to everyone. So, as parents with adolescents, what are some of the things that bug us? Why do we find it so challenging? And when I took a poll on Facebook, what people told me was that one of the hard things was watching them make mistakes and allowing them to fail and trusting that everything was going to be okay. So, letting go is certainly one of the things that I think is hardest for parents, but thinking, kind of realizing that we cannot fix every problem that they have. And it's kind of funny because teenagers are going to make mistakes anyways, and hopefully they're going to fail because that means they're out there living their lives. But so it's kind of funny that it bothers us to watch it, even though it's like a sign that they're normal and healthy and like living. They're going to do it anyways. So why is it hard for us to watch? Yeah, it just is. I think we have to give up our kind of our ego around like this that we had when the kids were younger, and we figured out that we could solve every problem that they have. So I think that gets tricky. Some of the things that scare us as parents and make parenting teenagers difficult is the unknown. A lot of this centers around things that we don't have control over that maybe we did have control over when they were younger. So one mom said, in elementary school, I knew her friends and their families. Now I don't know anything about her friends, and it makes me nervous. Another mom said, I've talked to my son about sexting, online porn, and the risks of social media, but he's on there all the time. How do I know he's not involved with inappropriate things? As kids grow older and become more independent, it's appropriate that we not know everything that's going on in their lives. And so that scares us. Peers sometimes scare us as parents. Sometimes it's this group mentality, where like, I can't do anything unless all my friends are doing it. I hear so much from moms and from kids, like, a mom signs her daughter up for singing lessons because her daughter really wants them, but she's too embarrassed to go because she doesn't want to be judged, or she won't go she won't do anything unless her friends are doing it along with her. And I think as parents, we can see that as like an insecurity instead of recognizing that it's a normal developmental stage and they'll grow out of it. So that's kind of hard for us to watch. Loss of identity, not wanting to stand out, like even in a positive way. Some kids, they might be really bold and brave and, want attention when they're younger. And then all of a sudden they hit adolescence and they like won't go out for the lead in the play because they don't want to stand apart from their friends, or they don't. I know I had that. Like, I didn't want to get better grades than my friends because I didn't want them to. Well, I mean, they teased me. They made fun of me. Like, what do you think you are? Like, you're smarter than the rest of us. And so sometimes not wanting to stand out, even in positive ways, can make us, as parents, unnerved. So that dependence on the peer approval, always wanting to be with their friends sometimes, or the opposite. Parents complain about them wanting to be with their friends too much or not wanting to be with their friends enough, not interested in, having close friendships, fitting in. Maybe they're a bit of a loner. Maybe they don't care about the approval of the kids at school, and that can be unnerving for parents. Negative emotions. So this is one thing that's really hard for parents, is to watch their children have these mood swings and emotional roller coaster ride. I had one mom recently tell me, like, freshman year has been so hard. It's just this emotional roller coaster filled with ups and downs. And I'm like, wait, are you riding the roller coaster along with your daughter? Because you don't have to. You can let them have their emotional roller coaster and not necessarily ride along with them. Rude behavior towards family was a big complaint I got from parents. Like, how do we know what to call them out on and say absolutely no, unacceptable? And how do we know it's just like, okay, they just had a bad day, we should just blow it, let it blow over. And then the constant arguing. Lots of teenagers are arguing with their parents, their siblings, telling them what where they're wrong, why they're wrong, how they don't know anything. Here's one mom's comment. She said, I made my 13-year-old go to Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk with her family. She refused to ride any rides or boogie boards, both things she normally loves, and pouted the whole day. She was determined not to have any fun. School is a source of stress for a lot of parents, and it seems to be two ways. One, my child takes school too seriously and stresses out all the time. Or two, my child doesn't take school seriously enough. It's like pulling teeth to get him to do his homework. So either one can be frustrating for parents as they get, maybe it can be hard for parents to separate themselves from their child's academic career. I think raising teens is a spiritual path, and let me tell you why. If you look at any spiritual journey, I don't care if you're walking the Camino in Spain or, moving to an ashram in India or whatever you're going to do towards your spiritual enlightenment path, there are certain elements that have in common. Number one is surrendering the illusion of control, which is what parents are faced with when teenagers come in. When the kids are younger, we think we have control over them because if we say don't do that, they stop doing it. And all of a sudden they're like, you can't tell me what to do. And you're like, holy crap, you're right. I can't. And it stinks. So this is number one on the spiritual journey of raising teenagers. Number two, accepting and appreciating things as they are today. I don't know any spiritual movement that does not have living in the present moment as a part of that. And that's so much of what we need to shift to as parents of teenagers, because we can get caught up in futurizing and, like, oh my gosh, this is going to impact the rest of her life. And if he doesn't take school seriously now, then, he's damaging his chances of getting into good colleges or whatever. We tend to futurize, and it's all comes back to the present moment. Dissolving in the ego. Number three. Yeah, hello, spiritual journey. When your kids are constantly telling you that you're wrong and you don't know anything and everything you do is lame, then your ego is going to take a beating. And they're the ones that built our ego up. If you remember when they're little, like they thought we walked on water and everything we did was just wonderful. And now it's like we can't, everything we wear is wrong, we say is wrong. So learning how to believe in our worthiness, even when the people we're living with do not, is a spiritual journey. Number four, remembering that there are other forces at work. So whether you're a God person or like you kind of can just see that like there's sometimes the universe has a greater plan for your child's life than you have. And adolescence is the time that often will bring it up into the surface and recognize that like we might have expectations and dreams for our children, but sometimes there's like another force at work here that's leading our child and taking them in a different direction. We can see that with maybe their new and emerging interests and propensities and skills and talents and where they're pulled, or sometimes by like, illnesses and, physical obstacles that get in their way that might take them on a different path than we had planned for them. The last thing why raising teens is a spiritual path is the isolation and connection to your own emotions. So as teens start not wanting to be around us and separating from us physically, emotionally, mentally, because they're right and we're wrong, we have the pending separation of them like moving out of the house, that this kind of like, okay, well, who am I if I'm not parenting my child? And this kind of forcing you to be alone with your own emotions and what's like going on for me that's separate from me as a mom and me as living with this teenager. So kind of that isolation that is part of all spiritual journeys. So here are my 7 steps to living with teens without losing your mind. Okay, we're going to go through the 7 steps really quickly, and then I'll go into more detail then. later. Number one, understand normal teenage behavior. Sometimes it can be like, why is my teenager acting so crazy? And when we can understand that it's what's normal, it helps us like just chill and relax and know that it's a temporary thing and they'll come back around. Number two, understand your triggers. Your teenager is going to make you feel things you don't want to feel. So figuring out what those things are so you can do your own work and not put your baggage on your kid. Number three, learn to feel your genuine feelings so they don't have control over you. Okay, we'll talk about how to do that. Number four, set clear boundaries aligned with your values. Number five, love more and care less. This was my biggest aha. And number six, tune into your instinctual intelligence. Maternal instincts are really powerful, but we don't have access to them when we are stuck in worry or control or, fear or all the other stuff. So we have to kind of clear that out of the way with, and then know what our instincts feel like when they're trying to communicate with us. Like, how do we know? What's right and what's wrong for me, what's right, what's wrong for my child. How do we know? Number seven, create a future you're excited about and use scarcity to your advantage. So really putting us back into kind of in the driver's seat of our life. And sometimes when teenagers are acting up, they kind of pull a lot of our attention. But if we can kind of refocus on what do I want? What's my dream for myself and my future? And what's my life going to be like once this teenager is not living in my house? We can create some positive changes. So number one is what's normal. So some of the things that are normal for teenagers are valuing peer relations and opinions and separating from the parents. It might not be fun or comfortable for them to tell us they're wrong, that we're wrong all the time, but it really is their job. It's how they separate. When they are critical and judgmental of us, that's how they're learning to have a different opinion and view the world differently. You can also see where we are enmeshed with each other, your parents in their teens. So like if your teenager gets embarrassed by you, that's showing that they are over-identifying with you. Like there isn't a separation between where they end and you begin. And so they feel embarrassed because you're still like enmeshed. And if you feel embarrassed by your teenager, then it's a sign that you are too enmeshed with them. So like I remember, like watching my son like miss a shot. And in volleyball, he plays volleyball. So like he'll, like serving and it would hit the net and it would go down. And I'm like, why am I embarrassed? Like, I feel bad for the team. Like, he let the team down. I'm like, wait a second here. Like, that's for him to feel. Like, I'm his mom. I'm sitting on the sidelines. What did I just do that was embarrassing? So, like, really starting to separate those things out every time you catch them. Or, like, I'll get embarrassed by an outfit that my daughter's wearing. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm not wearing that outfit. Like, you kind of have to check it. So what else is normal for teens? They're very present focused. The frontal lobes of the brain have not fully formed. That's the part of the brain that can predict the consequences of their actions. So they tend to make a lot of mistakes, say stupid things, and but they're still figuring things out, or they tend to like start withdrawing and not speaking up for themselves because they're afraid of making mistakes. And so they just have difficulty predicting. So sometimes as parents, we have to act as their frontal lobes for them. Like say, yeah, grades really are important to help you get into the college you want or to help us get financial aid. And it might not seem important to you, to learn this math that you're never going to use again. I know how frustrating that is, but it really does have an impact on your life and your future. So sometimes from a parent's perspective, they can look unmotivated, but they really just are very much in the present. Number three, fighting to be right and fighting for power. So this is just that part of separating from us. They want to feel powerful, and parents sometimes represent that authority figure, that power. And so them rebelling against us, hiding things, sneaking, lying, that's all their way of trying to fight for power. So the more power we can give them, the better off they are. If we can find ways for them to feel powerful. And then number 4, weak self-esteem and developing coping skills. This is really hard for parents. They're like, oh, my daughter used to be so confident and self-assured, and now all of a sudden she's, won't take any action unless all her friends take it too. And I just want her to be confident. Well, it's age appropriate. And so just knowing that that's normal and probably temporary is just kind of nice for us to remember. The teenage brain is firing off like crazy. This is a growth spurt, like when they were 2 years old and they're learning language and how to walk and, like all the physical mobility stuff and the verbal and the comprehension, like it's just exploding during adolescence in the same way it did when they were little. Scientists call this exuberance. There's so much going on. And so because of this, you're going to see just things like novelty seeking, like, craving new experiences and sometimes doing stupid things, but also overwhelm because their just brains are firing on all cylinders, that they often get exhausted and they need more sleep, more rest, more downtime. And sometimes this overwhelm shows up emotional explosions and strong emotional responses. What they find when they put teenagers' brains in the MRI and they show them a picture of somebody experiencing an emotion like fear. So when adults see a picture of someone feeling afraid, their parts of the brain that light up are the parts that have like empathy and like, oh, I want to help that person, or like they seem scared, like let me try to comfort them. When teenagers' brains see a picture of somebody who's in fear, the parts of their brain that light up are actually their amygdala. Like they go into a fight or flight response. So there's just a whole lot of this mirroring neurons going on. They're the most intuitive they're ever going to be. So if they see someone who's in fear, they immediately can feel fear themselves. So they go into fight or flight. They're like, get me out of here. Or, oh my gosh, like something is, should be scared of. So they're just highly intuitive, I guess is the word to use to describe that, where they can come home at the end of the day and be crying and not even know why. And if you ask them, like, why are you sad? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think I am. Like, it's almost not even their stuff. They're spending all day around a group of kids who are insecure, uncertain, nervous. There's just a lot of emotional, right? Angry, sad, scared, happy, exuberant, excited. There's a ton of emotions going on at middle school campuses. So when you hang out with that all day, you just soak it up like a sponge. And then you come home, you have to kind of wring out the sponge. And so a lot of times parents get the brunt of that. They get the tears, the anger, the explosions, and it might just be the kid wringing out the sponge. It might not have anything to do with they're experiencing. They are just soaking it up like a sponge. So this is one of the kind of normal things that happens with adolescence that's really hard for parents, and I think it helps to understand it. And so sometimes they take a lot of intuitive leaps, like they're, like I said, very, very tuned in. Their brain is firing on all cylinders. So they'll notice even the subtlest little thing, like their friend turned their back on them at lunchtime, or their friend didn't text them back. And they might just take that to usually mean something negative about themselves. Like, oh, she's mad at me. Or, oh, I said something stupid. I shouldn't have said that. Or, oh, she doesn't want to be my friend anymore. And they could take these big intuitive leaps. The teacher, yelled at me in class, I'm going to get an F for sure. These big exaggerations. So that's all normal because they're so intuitive and their brains are just in these major growth spurts. So the more like relaxation and calm we can give them at home, the better off they can be, and the more like sleep and downtime they can get to help them relax. Okay, number 2 is understanding our triggers. So this is such a big thing. When I coach parents, they, like, they'll say, okay, this is really bugging me. My child is, they have these, examples of like, okay, she won't go out for the lead in the school play because she doesn't want to stand out. Like, okay, well, what are you making that mean about you, right? Like we have to just look at that. One, that's your daughter, but two, what's going on for you? So a lot of parents will say, like, I need him to be happy, successful, well liked in order for me to feel happy, successful, and well and relaxed. And maybe well liked too. But how do I relax when my kid is not? There's just this enmeshment going on. So often when we can recognize that the reason we want our kids to behave a certain way is so that we can feel differently, we've got to start taking ownership for our own emotions. Like, if I want to feel relaxed, that's my job. I can't wait for my child to feel relaxed. It's like you're giving all your power to be like happy and satisfied and believe you're a good mom into the hands of a crazy adolescent. We've got to take that power back. You get to decide how you want to feel and leave them out of it. So one of the thoughts that parents have is there's one path to success and it's my job to get you there. That is kind of a cultural belief that we grew up with. I think it started with like the baby Einstein era. And it's like, it's our job to make our kids as smart as possible and, expose them all these things. And then when adolescence hits, it becomes like overwhelming for parents because there's so many things they don't have control over. And it makes kids want to rebel against us because they don't want to be told what to do. If they succeed, they feel like it's our victory. And they don't want to give us that. They want to have their own victory because their job is to separate. And so they will often push back. So enmeshment and over-identification certainly is a trigger for us and our kids. And then our own pasts can really come into play here. We remember the teenage years, like the first 7 years, we don't really remember that much about being a kid, but like we remember middle school and high school. And so often our past will come into play like, oh, I don't want you to experience what I experienced. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. Or why can't you be more like me? Like, this was not hard for me. Why isn't it hard for you? And so just having our past and then our own expectations as a parent for like what we imagined our kids being like through the teen years really can get in our way from enjoying it and like accepting what's going on right in front of us. If we could recognize how much of this is about us, it makes life so much easier. So here's an example of a parent says, my son refuses to take school seriously. So the question you want to ask yourself is, well, what are the facts? Now, the facts need to be completely neutral. Refuses to take school seriously has definitely got some emotion and some weight behind it, so it's not neutral enough. So the facts are, he has a 2.8 GPA. He spends about an hour on homework every night. He is a sophomore in high school. So those are the facts. You could take them to a court of law and argue them, and nobody would argue against. Like, you could track it. Then you want to ask yourself, well, what am I making it mean that he has a 2.8 GPA? He spends an hour on homework every night and as a sophomore. Well, I'm making it mean you got to look at, where am I catastrophizing and futurizing this? He's going to be a failure in life, a bum on my couch. He'll get a girl pregnant and his life will be ruined. So when we have that, that's why a mom has a lot of emotion around this. It's because she's unconsciously projecting it into a really frightening future for her. So that's why she doesn't have neutral emotions. So if that happened, let's say he did do that. He got a girl pregnant and he doesn't move out of your house. He lives still at home. If that happened, what would you make that mean about you? And I'm not doing good enough job as a mom. Like, it always comes back to us. Like, our own inadequacies, our own fears around failure. So then we can take a look like, okay, well, is it possible for a good mom to have a son who gets a girl pregnant and, lives at home? And like, of course it is. Like, you can picture that with other people, like how that could happen. And like, you could still be a good and loving and caring parent, but not necessarily have a child who does everything you want them to do. Like, that happens all the time, but we can get really caught up in that. So asking yourself these questions and taking a look at it will help. Futurizing, catastrophizing are the big enemies of parents of teenagers. Here's another example. My daughter is obsessed with social media and her cell phone. Okay, well, what are the facts here? She's 14. She has a phone. She uses it to connect with others, and she has Instagram and Snapchat accounts. Now, it might be true that she's on her phone 5 hours every day, but that might not feel neutral to a parent, so we don't want to say it. Okay. Next question. What are you making it mean? She's wasting her time. She's going to get herself into trouble. She's missing out on life. Well, what are you making that mean about you if she is wasting her time, getting into trouble, and missing out on life? I'm a bad mom. I shouldn't let her be on it so much. I'm going to kick myself later. Like I should be doing more than I am. This is the stuff that makes us like, it's almost like we think that's going to make us parent more effectively, but it doesn't. This is what it makes us do. When you're like, I'm a bad mom, it makes us go overly authoritative or overly permissive. So you're like, that's it, no more phones for you. I'm taking this away forever. You can never use this again. And you're on this way too much and you're going to hide it and you have to like earn it back and blah, blah. And there's anything wrong with that. The problem is we have so much emotion around it and we go way to the extremes that we can't sustain it. So then we go, they know that like, oh, I'll just suck it up for a day or two and mom will forget, or I'll just sneak it back, or she'll give in. And they know that about us because they're so smart. So, or we tend to go like overly permissive. You're like, fine, just do whatever you want, ruin your life. I don't care. Of course we do care. So then we're betraying ourselves when we go to that route. So this is why it's so important to take a look. How can I be a good mom and have a daughter who's on her cell phone 5 hours a day? Like is it possible? And then, of course it is. So what would that look like? And then really just making sure that we are being true to ourselves and believing we're a good mom and separating that from our kids' behavior. Number 3, feeling our feelings. If you think about it, the only thing we really want out of life is a feeling. And the only reason we want to win the lottery is because we imagine the freedom we would feel with that. The only reason we want our kids to be like happy and well adjusted and well liked is so that we can relax and believe we did a good job as a parent. Well, the same is true for your kids, right? The only thing they really want is a feeling too. So if when they're with mom, they feel guilty and pressured, they're not going to want to be around mom. I mean, their kids are pretty cut and dry. So you've got to take a look at, all of us as parents have to take a look at what is the feelings we're trying not to feel, because that's when we hand our kids our power. So most of us have like a default emotion that's really easy for us to go to, like maybe it's really easy for us to feel happy. I love it. It's easy. I can be happy all the time. And sometimes I can get so optimistic, maybe that I'm in denial because the feeling I'm really trying not to feel is fear. Or maybe you're a big worrier and fear comes really easily to you because what you really don't want to feel is anger. Like you don't want to be mad, and there's a lot of things to be mad about. For me, my default emotion is anger. I can go to frustration and yell at a heartbeat. But the feeling I'm trying not to feel, like I really have a hard time with, is just this feeling of like embarrassment. I think it's the biggest one for me. So like every time my kids trigger me and I start to feel embarrassed, I go to fear instead. Like I'll knock that off, and I log backtrack and be like, wait a second, I was actually trying, like I was feeling embarrassed. And so instead I go to like rules and control as a way to not feel embarrassed. So I avoid it at all costs. So recognizing that about yourself is so helpful. That way you get your power back and your kid does not have control over your emotions. So take responsibility for your own emotions first, then you can help your teen with theirs. When we're trying to avoid feeling something, it makes life much harder. How's that? Here's a quote from a mom. When I touch my son's shoulder, he reacts like my hand is poison. He used to talk and confide in me, and I really miss it. So this is a son who's trying to separate from his mom, find his own identity, figure out who am I without my mom around. what it sounds like to me is coming up for this mom is a genuine emotion of sadness. I used to think that like when my child moves out of the house, like I'm going to be so sad and I'm going to grieve the loss of him. And what I've learned over the course of the last year is that it's actually very helpful if you can start grieving beforehand. It kind of sets your teenager free so that he doesn't have to react like your touch is poison. If we can start grieving the loss of what was that tight bond that we had with them, that, kind of our like that wise person that they can come to when they want to talk. Like when we can say goodbye to that and be like, okay, I surrender to the fact that that's over now and it's never going to be the same. Not to say we won't have a good relationship with them, but it's going to be different because they're going to be an adult. And so starting to grieve that loss now while they're still in the home, I think is actually can be very healthy. Number 4. Okay, once you've mastered your own triggers and you can feel any feeling and your kids can't like control you by making you feel something you don't want to feel, then you can set clear, consistent boundaries with your kids. So you want to separate your child's behavior from your identity as a parent. That's step number 1. I can be a good mom regardless of what they do. Step number 2 is, what are my values? Like, what is really important to me that I can connect with here and use that as a reason to set these boundaries rather than like fear or control. And number 3, what boundary can I set with my teen that is clear, consistent, and that I can follow through with? So you want to have this energy of conviction, that you believe it all the way through to your bones, that no matter what, you will uphold this boundary regardless of what your kid says to you. So you want to think about it as like when your kid was 5 and it went running into the street and you pulled it back and you said, no, you may not run into the street. That is not okay. I will stop you every time until you can stop yourself. When you've got that energy, that conviction, your child senses it. You are in charge, you are in control, you are a strong leader, and there really isn't any reason for them to push back and rebel. They might try it a time or two, but if you uphold that and say, nope, not okay to run in the street. Nope, not okay to run in the street. And it just gets boring for them. So that's the energy that we need when it comes to setting boundaries with our kids. If we say absolutely no drinking or drugs in this, or tobacco products, now all these e-cigarettes and stuff, right? We have to expand. In my house, like, until you're 21 years old or something like that. Like if we can set a very clear, consistent boundary and like everybody agrees, we hold to it, then they won't have a need to push back on that. Or if we can say, no cell phones in your bedroom at night. They come out at 10 p.m. and you can have them back in the morning. Something that you can hold to consistently and with conviction, then your kids will respect that. But we have to find that in ourselves first before we can give them the rules. Here's a quote from a mom. My 14-year-old only allows me to ask him 2 questions a day. So there you've got a kid who's setting a very clear, consistent boundary with his mom. And even though she's like, are you hungry is one of the questions. And how was your day? Like, there I go. So it forces her to be very careful what she asks. But this is a 14-year-old who's ready to separate. Are you in denial? So sometimes this can happen with parents of teenagers where they just don't want to see something, and denial is really powerful. And so if they don't want to see something that's right in front of their face, then they can not see it. But I think the fear of us being in denial often gets in our way of seeing our kid as they are today, like the good, healthy, respectful, kind child that they are when they're around other people. Maybe not around us. But this fear of like, I'm missing out on something, like something's happening and I'm going to miss it, sometimes can get in our way of accepting that everything's fine and it's normal and we're okay. So is your kid acting out for attention is a good question to ask yourself. Like if they're acting out, do you think that they want attention? Ask yourself what you're avoiding. I have a daily journal practice that I do and I recommend to my clients. And if you go to lifecoachingforparents.com, you can sign up to receive my blog and my newsletter, and one of the things you'll get is the daily journal questions that I ask myself. And one of them is there anything I'm avoiding? And that I have found to be so helpful on a daily basis, because generally there's like something, even if it's little, like I'm avoiding exercise or something, or I'm avoiding, I don't know, cleaning the house, but just to check in with myself. So it's a great question to ask. And one of the other tricks you can do to make sure you're not in denial is to make peace with your worst case scenario. So often we don't want to go there if we're like, determinedly optimistic, but what's the worst thing that can happen? And how can I still be happy even if it does? That it's hard to be in denial when you're at peace with that. And finding out what your emotion is that you try not to feel. So those are ways to make sure you're not in denial, because sometimes kids, it's hard to figure out. Are they acting out because they're feeling smothered and they want to separate, or are they acting out because they want more attention? And we'll talk about how both can be happening at the same time. Number 5, love more and care less. This was a big aha for me. So I wrote a blog called Smother Nature and the Art of Letting Go. If you want to email me or go on my Facebook page, Life Coaching for Parents, on Facebook, you can find a copy of the blog that I wrote. It was kind of a letter to help parents let go of their teens. And I found that to be really helpful for me in releasing the energy. So even look at this picture, this mom, she's leaning in with her daughter. Her hands are on her shoulders. They're gentle. She's got this weak energy, almost pleading. And not just to mention how the daughter's reacting to this energy, but you can almost hear her saying, please just don't do anything scary. Almost just this worry energy. And kids don't like when parents worry. It doesn't feel good. They resist it and they rebel, or they join in and they start worrying about things along with them. And it's not the same things we worry about. They worry about well, what if he doesn't like me? If I don't have sex with him, he's not going to like me. We don't get to pick what they worry about. So putting worry on your kids, I understand how tempting it is, because it's we feel better. Okay, here's my worries. If I put it on you, then I feel better. But it just does negative things to the kids. They just tune us out. They stop listening because they just they can't take it on. It's too much. So caring less is the way to remove that. I love you. I love who you are today. I love the person you're walking in the house with, but I don't care about things as much. Your friends, your schoolwork, I love you and I'm here for you. If you need me and want me, I'm totally here. I will be the first person in line. But I need to stop caring about the minutia. I need to stop checking your grades every day or every week. I need to stop, caring about your emotions and wanting to make sure you're happy all day, every day, because that's not normal, healthy, or natural for anybody to be happy all day, every day. We're not meant for that. So you just have to, as parents, we have to look out for the thing we care about the most is the thing our kids are going to want to resist. If you are highly invested in your child's schoolwork, chances are that's where they're going to rebel, because if they do well, it's your victory. They won't feel any connection or satisfaction to it. If they do poorly, it's theirs. There's that separation there. If this is what I realized here was the thing I cared most about my adolescent was his health and happiness. So where does he rebel against me? Health and happiness. It's oh God, I watched him walk in the room with me and he's wah, wah, totally, complainy. And then my husband walks in the room, sits down, starts chatting. He sits up straight, smiles, starts talking more animated. I'm are you kidding me? He's doing that just for me? He's acting depressed? That is just wrong. So the way I undid that is I started caring less and loving more. Because for many parents, caring, if you think about when I just want to take care of him, it involves things like feeding, clothing, grooming. Like, I just want to help him. My husband's like, stop making his lunch and stop waking him up in the morning and stop, I don't know what, but like telling him what to like to brush his teeth or whatever. And I was like, but that feels like not caring about him. But that's when I realized, like, if I could care less and just love more, it it really did turn things around. And now he can handle being happy around me. He's much more affectionate towards me. And it really involved this, like, asking myself, like, what would a roommate say? Like, a roommate might say, hey, how was your day? Or how'd that test go? But a roommate wouldn't ask, like, did you study? Did you brush your teeth? Um, like, just watching my interactions with them and switching from being this parent, this person in charge, like the authority, like it's my job to take care of you, and realizing like he wants to be a grown up. He wants to take care of me or other people. He loved it when I was sick. So, because I was like backed off, I guess. And so just recognize they're trying to grow up. And when we are acting as this caring, involved parent, it makes it hard. They can't become also an adult. So backing up, caring less, loving more, letting our teens feel independent. This is what I realized. Care unchecked becomes need, dependency, and control. I need you to talk to me and tell me what's going on with your day. So that, why? So that I can feel like a good mom, so that I can know what's going on with you. Because the feeling I don't want to feel is this feeling of like trusting and surrendering to the universe, and like that there are other forces at work here. So, if I care unchecked becomes need, dependency, and control. I want to control you. I want you to live this perfect adolescent life so that I can be proud of you. I can feel satisfied. I can feel like I've done my job. Gotta let go. We gotta care less and love more. Here's another quote. When my daughter was little, I didn't want to hang out with her all the time, but I didn't tell her that. Now that my teenager doesn't want to be with me, I expect her to be nice about it. This is a great example of like our expectations that get in the way. And, this idea that just because they look like us, talk like us, they're in many ways acting like a grown up, that we think they should act like a grown up. So that they should kind of have their life all figured out because they're so tall and mature in other ways. But it's not the case. Their teenage brain is so different. There's certain parts that aren't fully formed, and they have to separate from us. It's our number one job. So they can't act like us. They really can't. What are we letting go of? When we go to let go, what is it we're letting go of? I think we're letting go of this idea that just because they look like us, they should act like us. We are letting go of our expectations of perfection. I know that no parent says, like, if you say, do I want a perfect child? We'd say no. Like, that's not true. But when we look at our expectations for how, like, think about this. It's like, I wouldn't worry about my child if they behaved this way. Look at that definition of like, okay, I wouldn't worry. I know I could let go of my kid if they got good grades in school, had lots of friends, were well liked, were focused on, their future, were, well adjusted and happy, and, like, just, it really is kind of a perfectionistic view of what an adolescent's supposed to be like. They should be kind and friendly towards their family. So we really need to check in with that and let go of those expectations of perfection, or really just expectations in general. Live in the moment. We're letting go of our role as wise protector. That was a really nice role for us. We felt needed, we felt purposeful, that we could take care of our child, that we knew things they didn't know, and they could come to us when they had problems. This was great. We have to let go of that. And it's hard. Our ego fights it. We are letting go of our relationship as we knew it. That parent-child relationship will never be the same. And even when they're still in the house, it's okay to start letting go of that, what was, and appreciate, enjoy it. It doesn't have to be grief-stricken. You want to grieve, but it doesn't have to be like, I'm so sad. Like, be grateful and appreciative and like see it as the blessing that it was. Just start thinking of it as in the past tense. We're letting go of our illusion of control and the belief that we are responsible for our child's success. We now have a co-creator. Our child, our adolescent now is right in the picture with them. It's their life. It's their journey. It's their mistakes to make. It's their lessons to learn. So often we think like, okay, this is what I think. I assume everybody thinks the same. Like, I figured it out. Like all those crazy, horrible adolescent years, like I've figured it all out now. I know now how to be happy and well-adjusted and successful and well-liked by my peers. So we kind of feel like we can just like inject that wisdom into our kids. Like, okay, since I figured it out, you don't have to. Like, I've got the answers. This is secret of success. And it would be so nice if we could, but they have their own journey to learn and they've got to learn their own lessons and they're supposed to learn their own. And they might be the same ones as us, or they might be different, or a little bit of both. So letting them have their own journey is hard, but important. Letting go. So what gets in our way from letting go? The first thing is not minding our own business. So if you think about it, of like you're running around a track, as a parent, we need to stay in our own lane. And your kid can be running right next to you. So you've got to figure out like what here is mine to think about and what here is like theirs, and that can stay in their lane. So like how much they want to study, how much you can carve out the most ideal studying homework situation with like soft background music and like a quiet environment and everybody else studying too. That is still, they may not study. We have no control over whether they do their homework or not. We have no control whether they study. We don't get to choose what they eat. It's kind of like when they're little and you realize like, I can't make them sleep. I can't make them eat. I can't make them poop. We can't make them be more, socialize differently. We can offer suggestions. That's in our lane. That's our business. I can ask if he would like some advice. We can set up boundaries around and limitations around technology. We can revoke cell phone privileges. We can buy healthy foods and present it to them, but they choose what they eat. So figuring out what here is mine and what here is theirs is huge. So all the stuff we're going to be doing, I'm offering a 5-week teleclass. I'm going to be talking at the end of this webinar. And we're going to be doing all of this, like figuring out what is mine, what is theirs, because that's one of the best things you can do. Our past gets in the way, not wanting our kids to repeat our mistakes or wanting to cling to the past and not let our kid grow up sometimes, especially if the kid's a baby is harder than the first. Well, the firstborn's hard because we haven't been through it yet. The baby is hard because we don't want to let him go. So maybe the middle child has the easiest. I don't know. All right, what gets in our way? Fear of the future. Believing there's one path to success and it's my job to get you there. I can't even tell you how much that energy will repel your child. And number 4, our ego identity. How do I know I'm worthy if my child doesn't need me, like me, or even respect me? This is such a doozy, and we'll do more on this on the telecourse, but like, where does worthiness come from? And I think because kids are they just light up when we walk in the door and they hug us, they want to be with us all the time. Like our ego gets fed and we kind of attach to that a little bit. So when they stop thinking we walk on water, it's like, wait a second. Like, how do I know I'm good if my kid isn't telling me I'm good? And maybe nobody else is telling me I'm good. How do I know? Well, that's our work to do. That's definitely in our lane. And then who am I if I'm not parenting my child? Our identity kind of forms around us as a parent. And you'll still be a parent even when your teenager grows up. But who am I if I'm not parenting in that process of parenting? Like if my life starts to look kind of empty and I don't want to feel that loneliness, then I'm going to resist it and my kid's going to have control over me because I'm trying not to think about that and it gets yucky. So we'll clear all that up on the telecourse. Here's a quote from a mom. I was so frustrated, I finally decided to go to a family therapist. After 2 sessions, he suggested I only communicate with my son through sticky notes. My teenager felt so smothered by my need to know everything that he couldn't figure out who he was without me. It took about a year for him to trust me enough to talk to me again. It took me a year to back off, let go, and realize I have a very private, introverted son who needs his space. So, this is a great example of the love more, care less, right? And I just felt so bad for this mom because she was so much like me. She's like such an extrovert and like a communicator and like, she loved, you know, talking and being very open. That was her MO. And she had this kid who needed privacy. And so loving him for who he was, an introverted, private kid. He didn't want to talk about his feelings and didn't want to say what was going through his mind. So that's loving more and caring less right there. Number 6, instinctual intelligence. So this is one thing that'll be really fun to do on the webinar because we can clear out the other stuff and then figure out, okay, let's tune back into my instincts and what's I know to be true for me, and then attuning with my child to know what's right for them. So this is what all parenting experts say is like the key to like a happy parent-child relationship is this thing called attunement, where you just know them so well, and you know your triggers, so you can tell. Although sometimes I still struggle with this. Sometimes like the other day my son was playing video games and I go in the garage and I said, okay, like, I'm really having a hard time with you playing video games and I'm thinking this could be about me, but I'm not sure because it might be about you. So like sometimes it's still really vague. Like, am I having an emotional reaction because of me or because of you? It turns out it was because of me. He's like, I knew it was you. But, really trying to tune into like what's right for them and what's right for us and knowing ourselves very well. Because instincts are only available in the present moment. If you're in the future or in the past, you don't have access to your instincts. Worrying is going to block you from knowing what's true. So we've got to peel that back. When parents take responsibility for their own triggers, they can focus on the facts. So helpful. And I mean, I have this one client who she's so pissed off about her child's attitude towards high school academics. But then we break it into facts. Like he's got I don't know, a 3.8 GPA. He's got 2 AP courses. Like the facts don't match up with the emotional reaction of the mom. And that's because it's not about the facts. So once we can separate that, it'll help. And then, trust is one of these things. It's really hard for parents. Like, how do I trust my teenager to make good decisions? Because their frontal lobes aren't fully formed. They can't predict the consequences of their actions. They do make stupid mistakes. That's why insurance companies charge so much for car insurance. And how am I supposed to trust them to not make mistakes? And I think the answer is you aren't. Like, you're supposed to trust them to learn from their mistakes. I think is certainly more possible. You can trust them to have their own journey and have it be uniquely theirs, and let them kind of figure things out. But you could also trust in your ability to rise to any occasion. So when we try to prevent bad things from happening, it gets exhausting and stressful and our kids rebel against the energy. But if we can say, okay, I trust in my ability to rise to an occasion. If a problem arises, if I find marijuana in my son's bedroom, I trust myself to rise to the occasion then and figure it out in the moment. If I, find my daughter is, I don't know, talking to some stranger online and having an online relationship with somebody that she doesn't know, I trust myself to rise to that occasion and deal with it then. There's certain things you can do to prevent it. And then you talk to them, you show them Catfish, the TV show, so they learn the reality of what happens in the world. And then you trust them that they've learned. And then you trust yourself to, rise to an occasion if it should come up. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 7 step on staying sane in the land of crazy is to let go of your teen. We've talked a lot about this. But one parent says, what's the hardest part of parenting a teen? That's easy. It's letting go. Here's what I want you guys to know about letting go. The kids learn by imitation. So they're watching every move we make. So when we take responsibility for our emotional lives, kids learn to do the same, whether they want to or not. They can't help it because they're watching the moves that we make. When we sit in the driver's seat of our lives and stay in our own lane and mind our own business and not worry about what other people are thinking about us and trying not to please other people, then our kids will learn to do the same. When we create a future that we're excited about and that's very aligned with who we are, our kids are watching us. We can't expect them to do it right in the moment. At 14, they're not going to be, creating this perfect future that's perfectly aligned and knowing who they are and what they want. And that's unrealistic. But we can trust that they are watching us do it and that it'll come back to them when they're maybe 24, right? So think about modeling for your child what you want them to do with their life. So every time we step into their lane, try to control them, make them behave a certain way so that we can feel better, we're teaching them to do that too, right? I need all my friends to be nice to me so that I can be happy and relaxed. Well, wouldn't it be great to feel happy and relaxed regardless of what your friends are doing? I think it is. I highly recommend taking charge of your own emotional life and sitting in the driver's seat of your life. It feels so much better. It's controlling the things you have control over. So we're going to talk a lot about that on the telecourse and really break it down to that action steps. And another little thing I'd like to throw in there is to use scarcity to your advantage. So scarcity is this very powerful emotion. It's okay, there's a plate of chocolate chip cookies on the counter and there's only one left. You're going to grab it, even if you don't want it, because in 5 minutes it's going to be gone. It makes us do things that we might not normally do. Scarcity is very powerful. And sometimes when our kid is kind of approaching adulthood, we can scarcity can take on oh my gosh, oh no, he's going to be out of the house soon. So I have to cling to him and soak up these moments and love on him. Or we can go, oh my God, he's going to be adult and he doesn't know how to, do anything. Look at his emotional life is crazy. How is he supposed to be an emotional adult? I need to teach him and help him. So sometimes scarcity is so powerful, but we don't use it wisely. So we need to use it to our advantage, right? How can I use, okay, we've got a couple years left with an adolescent in the house. How can I make the most of it? How can I enjoy myself and have him enjoy this time while he's left in the house with me the most? How can I optimize this time? So really just making sure you're using it with peace and in ways that motivate you to take the actions you want to take rather than with just yucky, clingy control or urgency that makes you do things you might not want to do. So the Leading Your Teen telecourse I'm going to be offering is a 5-week telecourse on the phone. Well, hello. You are screen sharing, presenting to everybody. Okay, good. Make sure I get my thing back up. 5-week telecourse. So everybody's we'll meet like Monday nights from 8 to 9 p.m. on the phone, and there'll be topics. We'll talk about certain things, get some action steps going, some like little homework assignments so that you can take this learning, but really start applying it to your life. I made it super cheap. It's $199 for 5 weeks, 5 classes. Plus, it also includes a one-on-one individual coaching session with me so we can really figure out like what's going on for you specifically and what's coming up for like what might be getting in your way from really enjoying the teen years and kind of enjoying this as a spiritual journey. So this telecourse is at lifecoachingforparents.com/classes/leading your teen. So you can email me, lifecoachtori@gmail.com, and I'll send you the link, or you can just go to my website and it will be there. Leading Your Teen is what I'm calling it, because I want you to look at this picture with the ducks. This is the energy I think that works best with teens. Like the mama duck is in the front. She's walking along. She's confident. She knows the ducklings are behind her. She's very aware of what they're doing, but because they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing, she doesn't have to watch them. She can move forward. She's showing them what to do, how to avoid problems, how to, navigate their way to the ocean safely. She's showing them how to do it by example, and they're following along. But I've hung out with enough ducklings to know that if one of them strays and goes off course, she will immediately turn around. She senses it. She's attuned to it. She immediately turns around and she goes back and nudges it back along the path. And if they still don't get it, she jumps in and she leads them again. This way, she'll say, this is the way to go. And if they get into trouble, I have had lots of experience with the ducklings. I feel really random talking about this. But if ducklings get into trouble, the mama will stand there and quack and quack and quack and quack until like somebody else comes along to help. So she's very noisy. She gets the help that she needs. So thinking about this energetically is really helpful. Okay, number one, the week 1 of leading your teams, we're going to take a look at normal teenage behavior, right? What's normal and what's going on with your teens? Because all teens are different. That's why it's kind of hard sometimes. You look at your friends and you're like, why can't my teenager be like that? Or why isn't he? Why isn't she? And, is it because I'm a bad mom? So what it comes back down to. What do I need to do? Normal, and then what's unique to your kid and your relationship. You'll learn to take charge of the things that are within your control, and you'll feel confident in your parenting. You'll learn tricks for engaging teenage cooperation and learn how to know when to step in and when to back off. This is something that every parent's like trying to figure out. How do I know how much involved to get and when to let go? We'll take a look at that on the telecourse. We'll learn to use mirror neurons for our benefit. Remember I said these kids are highly intuitive and very sensitive to other people's emotions, so we're going to use that to our benefit. We'll learn how mama can still be happy even when nobody else is, and why that's the best gift you can give to your teens. And we'll teach our teens to own their decisions and claim their power. Week 2 is the keys to success in life. If a healthy emotional life is the key to success, then my teen is screwed. Why are they so emotionally volatile? Is there anything we can do or say that is actually helpful? And the answer is yes. I will teach you some magical tricks to creating an emotionally intelligent child and creating an even stronger parent-child bond. We'll take a look at the role emotions play in our relationship with our teens, in our lives and their lives, say goodbye to drama and welcome peace. Week 3, we'll talk about parenting with calm, confident energy. This class will help you connect with your values and where you might not be aligned with them in your parenting. You'll practice setting clear, consistent boundaries from love and self-confidence. We'll detangle your fears and good mom status from your teen's behavior. You will become free of needing to worry and trying to control things you have no control over. This is such an important class, but we've got to do the other work first. So can't wait for that one. Week 4 is instinctual intelligence. Should I be worried? How do I know when to trust my child and when to intervene? Again, it comes up. How can I improve my instinctual intelligence when it comes to my kids? This class will teach you the difference between productive and unproductive worry and how it blocks you from listening to your instincts. This is all about letting go of worry, and it's just so valuable. It'll help us appreciate the present moment instead of the past or the future. We can teach our teen to listen to their own instincts by first learning to listen to our own. Kids have instincts too, but we can't teach them if we don't know what ours are. So as we start to tune into us, we can model it for them. And oh my gosh, probably the best gift you can give your kid. It's like how to access their own internal wisdom. So helpful. Week 5 is letting go. This important class will help you separate your identity from your child's and focus on taking pride in yourself and your accomplishments. And so we got to have a good couple of years where we feel so proud of our kids. Like we watch them like, oh, I'm so proud of my kid, or I'm not so proud of my kid, So learning how to be proud of ourselves instead will free your child. As your child feels you releasing need, dependency, and control, he or she will be free to be his or her best self. As you learn to love more and care less, you put yourself along a spiritual journey and start creating a future that is even better than your present. Huge life-changing stuff we're going to be doing. We're using teens as our motivator, but it's really about us. Our journey. It's going to be so much fun. The first goal of this teleclass is to help parents feel confident and trusting and to appreciate these teen years. Like, why not? We've got them. We're going to be living with these teenagers for a couple more years at least. Why not enjoy and make the most of it? The second goal is to allow teens to appreciate themselves, to feel understood by their parents, and to allow them to be their highest and best selves. So much good life-changing stuff is going to go on in this teleclass. I kept it really cheap because I wanted as many people to join me on this journey as I could. My normal one-on-one coaching rate is $150. So to get 5 classes and a one-on-one coaching for $199, I think is a total steal. So I highly recommend you signing up today. I'm going to have to limit the number of people in the class. So make sure you sign up as soon as possible. If you're interested, do it now. You can go to lifecoachingforparents.com/classes/leading your teen, or Tori, Torie, at lifecoachingforparents.com. You can send me an email. Just tell me you're interested in the teleclass. When we ask teenagers what they want, they say a couple of things. Actually, they say 2 things. They say, like, 1, they feel neglected, or 2, they feel smothered. It's like 2 opposite things. And as parents, how do you know which one your kid would complain about? So one of the things I think it's actually both things together. One is they say, hear me and see me, pay attention to me as I am today. Like, accept me as I am today. See me for what's going on with me. But then if once you've done that, ignore me. Give me space so I can figure out who I am. It's this dichotomy, this push and pull, this back and forth. It's just like when they were little and I climb up on our laps and they sit on our laps and then they push us off and they go back and play. And then they're out playing with their friends and they climb back up on our laps and they want us again. So this presence that we can offer to them, this ever-loving, present, but not caring too much, accepting them for who they are. If we can just hold steady and calm, then they can bounce off of us through the teen years, ride their emotional roller coasters, and always come back to us as this place of calm, loving acceptance. So that's our journey, is to figure out how to be that loving acceptance. Is like the calm at the center of the hurricane. They're the hurricane. We're the calm core. Parents who are happy with their own lives. This is what kids want. They want parents who are happy with their own lives. Parents who are accepting, relaxed, trusting, inspired, and stress-free. This is the basis of the teleclass. I'm going to give to kids what they want most. If you have ever known a mom who did not take care of herself, it might be yours, it might be a relative, it might be maybe you have a friend's mom or your husband's mom or someone who didn't take good care of their emotions, their financial well-being, their physical health, you will know what a burden it places on a child. This is the best gift we can give our kids, and we're going to do it in the teleclass. I can't wait. So register now for the Leading Your Teen 5-week teleclass, telecourse, same diff. Learn to be happy and satisfied no matter what. Make peace with your teenager and let them have their own journey so that they can be free to enjoy and live a great, happy life. This is going to be November 7th through December 5th, 8 to 9 p.m. on Monday nights. The cost is $199. And again, it will include a one-on-one 50-minute coaching session with me, along with 5-hour-long classes on the phone. So can't wait. Please join me. It's going to be great fun. You can use your teen to live a more fulfilled and joyful life. And I really, truly believe the benefits will sustain after your teen leaves the house. Like even after they're grown, the things you're going to learn, the skills and the tools you'll learn are going to be long lasting. So can't wait to see you. Thank you so much for listening to the webinar. Really appreciate you having me today. Take care.